Can the residents in your market afford your projected rents? How do you know? So in this video, I'm actually going to show you how to calculate those projected rents. In case you don't know who I am, my name is David Monroe, CCIM, and I teach CI 102 Advanced Market Analysis for the CCIM Institute. Please make sure you like and subscribe my channel. So how do you calculate affordability? Well, there's two methods used. And the first method is used more often by people because they don't really understand what that method is. And it's considered the 3 times the rent method, which basically means that the property management companies, they qualify. It has nothing to do with affordability. They qualify their renters to make sure that their income is 3 times the rent. Okay, so that's monthly gross income divided by 3 equals your qualified max rent. That doesn't mean that that resident can actually afford it or not. It is just a qualification. It is used for qualification only. This does not indicate affordability. Threshold analysis, which is used by developers, that actually calculates affordability. So what in the heck is threshold analysis? That is the minimum level of gross income required to own or rent in a specific property within a particular price or rental range. So let's take a look and see how we calculate this. So it's really no different than how the FHA calculates whether you can afford to buy a home or not. So when they're looking at your debt to income ratio, this is a similar model that the FHA uses. We can start with either median household income, or we can start with that monthly rent payment, and I'll show you how we do that. Really, it just is the inverse of what we're going to do here. So if we have the median household income for the market, in this case, it's $82,868. If we take out our taxes, let's assume it's 20%. That's an industry standard across the entire U.S. There are some markets where these numbers are going to be a little bit more. Markets like California, New York, Miami, places like that. You may see a difference in the taxes as well as the monthly housing expenses, utilities, insurance, things like that. But for the rest of the United States, on average, these are the averages. So if we take out those taxes, that gets us to what's known as disposable income. If we then multiply by 35% for housing, that gets us to 23,203. If we divide that by 12 to get to monthly housing expenses, that means that 1933 is currently what we're spending for housing expenses. We then take out for utilities, insurance, maybe a couple of other things. In this case, 450 is about average across the U.S. Again, California, Miami, Chicago, New York City, you're probably going to have a little bit higher of the utilities and insurance here. This gets us to a monthly rent payment they can afford of $1,484. Now, let's take that 3 times the rent example. So if I've got the same median household income of 82,868 and I divide that by 12 to get to a gross monthly income of 6,905, and I divide that by 3, that tells me that they can afford $2,300 a month in rent. But as we can see, for affordability, they can only afford $1,484. It is much more accurate, and this is exactly what the FHA does when they qualify you to buy a home. So let's look at the inverse of this. Let's start with that monthly rent. Let's say that the broker has told us that you can get $300 rent bumps and you're sitting at $1,475 in rents currently. And they say you can get $300 in rent bumps for this market, so you go to purchase this property. Well, let's prove that test. So let's take a monthly rent of $1,500. So if it's $1,475 now, let's back this down and see what the median household income needs to be, minimum household income, in order to support $1,500. So we just factor everything right back in again. So we add back in that utilities and insurance, gets us back to $1,950. factor in or gross up for housing, divide that by 0.35, we get to 5571. There is our monthly disposable income. Okay, multiply that times 12 gets us our annual disposable income. Factor back in our taxes. So we divide by 0.80 because we're factoring in that 20%. 1 minus 0.2 is 0.8. And it tells us that in order to get a rent of $1,500 a month, we have to have a median household income of $83,571. So if you're in a market where median household income is only $75,000, you can't charge $1,500 a month for rent. This is what this is telling us. This is how you determine affordability. And this is why we're seeing rent declines in markets all across the country. We know people are moving to the markets. They just can't afford the rents anymore, so they're roommating up, and that affects demand. So if you want the how-to education to determine which markets will rebound the fastest and be ready for the coming recession, register for my free recording of the Multifamily Demand Masterclass that I taught on March 20th, 2023. Just go to www.strategicpartneringcommunity.com/MF-demand-masterclass-registration, or you can click the link in the description below this video, and that'll take you right to it. And I go over in more detail how to do affordability inside that masterclass. Right? That does it for today's masterclass, for today's how-to video. Please make sure you like this video if this was helpful. Share it to those you think that need to hear this. And please subscribe to my channel and ring the little bell so you can be notified when I do these. Next week, we are going to talk about how to calculate multifamily demand. I will see you guys next week.